Welcome to the Timeline Show, episode 138. And today we have Richard Finberg. He's a constitutional conservative and a member of Meet the Voter, that's meetthevoter.com, Sunday morning show. So Richard, it's finally time for your timeline. You have an interesting background. I know you've been an attorney. You've evolved and you ended up in Reno. So in about a few minutes, because we have a lot to do in this show, tell us, how did you get from California to Reno other than driving? I assume you drove. And what brought you here? What was your practice like in California?
It was a purposeful decision to come here, primarily because of taxes, and secondarily because of Nevada being a more friendly gun rights state. I've always been an avid supporter of the Second Amendment, so it was very important for me to get away from the draconian laws and the direction that California was moving in that direction. But I didn't want to be paying Arnold Schwarzenegger 10% of my retirement 401k,
We do have in Reno, Nevada, Northern Nevada, we have a lot of retirees, especially public servants, law enforcement, public safety, a lot here. It's a really safe place. Very nice place to live, too.
Yeah. So to give you some background, I graduated with a degree in psychology from UCLA, attended Southwestern University School of Law in Los Angeles. I went on to open up my own law firm and practiced labor law and specialized in workers' compensation for 35 years. I was admitted to practice before the U.S. Supreme Court in 1980 and was appointed a judge pro tem of the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board in California in 1984. After moving to Reno, I continued my involvement with the Republican Party and ultimately decided to throw my hat into the ring and ran for Nevada Assembly District 25 against the then minority assembly leader. And I am a member of the Washoe County Central Committee. And I've maintained my activities with the Republican Party up to this point in time. I also am the administrator and leader of a Second Amendment support group called the God Group. It's Gun Ownership and Defense, where we talk about all aspects of gun ownership, maintenance, laws, federal and state, and current trends and what's going on. And my group and myself personally are going to be very active in trying to defeat Bloomberg's efforts to bring universal background checks here to Nevada in 2016. I'm sorry.
So you basically, you went to UCLA in psychology, but now you're an attorney in California. There's a gap there. Where'd you go to law school? And what made you end up going to law school?
Well, actually, I was a pre-med major, pre-med psychology at UCLA. I wanted to become a doctor. I worked full-time, well, not full-time, but part-time, supported myself entirely through UCLA. And because I worked and went to school and burned the candle at both ends, instead of having an A++ GPA, which is what you needed to get into a graduate medical school at the time, I wasn't ready to go to the University of Guadalajara and learn to speak Spanish. So I had to do some soul searching, and I just looked at what my personal attributes were and what my strengths were, and I decided that I was a people person and I wanted to, affect change. Yes. I wasn't ready to become a social justice warrior, never was. But at the same time, when I put all the elements together and I decided what I could possibly do as an alternative to medical school, law school was the best choice for me. And that's what guided my decision there.
Hey, FYI, I have to be laughing a little bit because I just got a call from a board member on here. I said I can't talk right now. We just sent an email out. People are opening up and watching live right now on republicanmensclub.org, which you're a member, right? You're a member.
Yes.
Because I said I want to feature when we have a member, I want to feature them on timelines. That's cheap. I can get you on $35 for you.
No, I know.
So I want to feature him. So you're live on the show right now. And anybody who's a member, I'd love to have them on Timelines. It's an open invitation. So I got a voicemail from them. If they're watching, they'll know.
Good.
There's a hi out there. Sorry I couldn't answer, but I'm in the middle of the show. So that's funny because there's a real challenge with new media in the Republicans of Northern Nevada with the voters. It's an older voter group because a lot of people retire from California and end up here. And there's a lot of Republicans out there. So you were one of those transitional people. I came here. I just love the mountains and the back hills, but it's a great place to run the kind of business that I'm setting up right now. I grew up in California too, but so that's neat story. So let's go back in your law practice. What type of law did you practice?
I was a labor lawyer and I was a certified specialist in workers' compensation, which was always fun in California. It changed every year because the legislature decided that they had to do something about all the fraud and abuse. And of course, when the legislature got involved in trying to cure the problem, they always made it worse. And it became a myriad of regulations that required a PhD or a doctorate, at least in law, to get through.
This is definitely a different show. I just got my second call, so I just turned off my phone. If I'm in the middle of a show, don't call. But
I thank Jimmy Carter for getting me started in the Republican Party.
Really? Well, what's your early background? Where you grew up? You grew up in LA, in those areas?
Born in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh yeah.
Parents always voted Democrat. Moved to California when I was 6. And like I say, I didn't know anything better. In fact, when I was a freshman at UCLA, I was notoriously liberal. I had long hair. I smoked pot,
Oh my.
Oh, I was
UCLA is such a beautiful campus.
I was a lost soul.
What years were that?
I started UCLA in 1967.
Oh wow, that's the hippie time.
Oh yeah. I wound up enlisting in the Army National Guard. That kind of knocked the liberalism out of me. I did it to avoid having to be sent to Vietnam, but I was prepared to do so if it became necessary. And there were National Guard units that were being activated at the time. I was in an engineering unit in Burbank, California.
I imagine it was really different down there because I was 9 years active in Air National Guard, and it's pretty professional, the Air National Guard. I really enjoyed it. But back then, it was probably a unique time in the 60s. Wearing a uniform, you didn't always get treated well. So was John Wooden there when you were there back then?
John Wooden was there. I never missed a basketball game.
Amazing guy. He's my favorite. He's by my favorite motivator. He
was there throughout my attendance at UCLA, which was 5 years.
What was he like back in the 60s?
He was the John Wooden that everybody knew. Quiet, soft-spoken, determined, stressed all the fundamentals. Practice. I remember that he always used to stress fundamentals of basketball. And one of the classic stories, and I know this from experience, was that Lou Alcindor, now known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor and I were in some classes together.
What was he studying?
I don't know what his major was, but he was taking a lot of sociology courses, and there were a couple of psychology courses that he was also in that I, of course, was taking because I was a psych major. But, I think he was involved in the Black Studies curriculum and the Muslim Students Association at that time. He wasn't a particularly friendly guy, and he always had kind of a chip on his shoulder, but, no one ever talked about that. All they wanted to do was win basketball games. But he was a lousy free throw player, lousy free throw guy. Before the regular team practice, Wooden used to make him stand for an hour at the free throw line, and that's all he would make him do. Throw free throw shots after free throw shots. It was hilarious. But, you get what you do. You get all that practice paid off.
You read about Wooden. I always remember every year they said when he starts his training, he goes back to basics, like learn to tie your shoes correctly. So it makes sense that you make him, he used to do that, like throw like this too once in a while. between the
He
legs.
had his famous pyramid of success.
Well, that's pyramid. No, I was thinking of the free throw from Lewis Center. Didn't he used to throw later on?
Yeah. Yeah, that was it.
But the pyramid of success, it's all over UCLA.
Oh, yeah.
We went to the national gymnastics championship there, and it's everywhere. It's every wall, every place. He's the hero. Great guy.
Fantastic.
So
I've never known a more unique and just a brilliant man, generous, kind, smart, morally grounded.
Yep.
Which I think is important in our lives. I think, like the founders of this country said, our democratic republic won't survive unless it's comprised of persons of good moral character.
He had a life of success, that's for sure. He was a good man. So anyway, before we go into the final section, I'm going to ask you one last question about your practice.
Sure.
On your practice, what's one of the more unusual cases that you came upon or you worked on?
There's a couple. One of the more unique cases was the accident involving Vic Morrow when he was filming the Vietnam War movie, and the chopper.
Now I remember that.
Crashed and killed a couple of Vietnamese children on the set. That was a tragic accident, and it was a pretty big case, and I was integrally involved in that because I was representing the Burbank Studios, which was producing the film at the time. Another case involved a Marine who was out of active duty. He was working in an office, and a file cabinet tipped over, knocked him on the head, and he suffered a concussion. Following the concussion, he claimed that he had a complete alteration of his personality, and he believed that after his concussion, he believed that he was a woman. He adopted a transgender personality for himself, and he filed a workers' compensation claim and sought to have the state pay for his sexual reassignment surgery.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, that was back in the 80s.
So I would guess that the state did not pay. It may
have.
They
wound up. Well, the case got settled, but they paid a huge amount of money, which in effect enabled him to get the surgery. But they just didn't want to have the case go to a verdict, and,
right?
Have it established as a precedent.
Well, with that, we're going to take a break and go to a short commercial because we have to, we're capitalists, so we have to make a little bit of money for the show to improve the quality and better equipment. So today's show is brought to you by Share the Oils of Northern Nevada. Thank you, Share the Oils, for your support. Without your support, we can't have great shows like this, and we can't get better because we can't buy more equipment. And also, a little bit of information. Right now, I've launched a new show called Two Halves. Not a new show. I'll clean this up on the podcast, folks out there. I could cut this right now. I just saw it. So that's why I like this system. We can really do a lot of work. Today's show is being brought to you by Share the Oils. Thank you, Share the Oils from Northern Nevada. And also it's being brought to you by my company, which is a education and training company, New Media Gold. And what we have out there today, if you go to Two Half Success, for $11, you can pre-purchase what we call is Netcasting 101, where you learn to take a blab like we're doing here and turn it into a podcast and a YouTube. It's a nice little simple course, works really well, and it'll be out at the end of the month, but you can pre-buy it right now for $11. And that's going to go up next week to $22 or $23, and the end price is going to be about $40. So let's get back to the show. We're going to talk about Richard's success principles. I'm going to read them off, Richard. Ready?
Sure.
Okay, here we are. He's got 7 here, and they're really good. First of all, listen. Number 2 is follow up. Number 3 is trial preparation. Number 4 is never give up. Number 5 is lead by example. Number 6 is your word is your bond. And number 7 is fiscal responsibility. You could a few political points in there too. So Richard, let's go back to listen and listening. What's that mean?
Well, look, there's a couple of things. There's kind of 2 sides to the coin there. If you're not listening, you're not going to be an effective advocate because you're not going to be able to put forth your position on anything, or you're going to miss something very important and you're going to lose the case, or you're going to lose some other aspect of the matter that you're involved in. So it's really important to hear what your clients are telling you and to pay attention to what's going on. You know, the number one complaint to the State Bar of California was, guess what? My attorney never returns my phone call.
Really?
Number one complaint.
Interesting. They must have so much work they don't have time to return a phone call. Now, when they return a phone call, if they're on retainer, that they get paid, right?
Yeah, of course. But
why would someone not return their phone call?
That's the problem with being on retainer. It fosters laziness in many respects. In the Soviet Union, my daughter actually went to Stanford and studied in the Soviet Union for a quarter. She lived with a Russian family in Moscow. One thing she complained bitterly about was how you could never get any service in a restaurant. All the waiters and waitresses would just sit in a corner of the restaurant, smoke, and tell jokes because they weren't getting tips. They were all getting paid the same. So it didn't make a difference whether they put out that little bit of extra effort. But getting back to my practice, and really, when I decided that I was going to be a success, there were two things really that I did. I decided to open up my own practice. That was number one, because I was going to be successful personally, but I was never going to really achieve all of my goals unless I had my own practice. So I did that. But taking into account that the number one complaint with the State Bar was that no attorney ever returned their phone call, I always did. I made it a point of returning everybody's phone call within 24 hours. My secretary at the end of the day, especially if I was all day in a trial, I'd come back with 50 phone messages on my desk. I would go through every one of them and I would call every one of them back. And even if I couldn't answer their question, I always called them back and I said, you know what? I got your message. I'm going to look into it. And I want you to know that I'm on it and I'll have an answer for you. And that was critical to making my practice a success, following through, listening and responding to the complaints or questions.
Yeah, I can relate to that. We've been in the real estate industry for 25 years. I was the construction design build side, but my family had brokerages, and the agents who were good were always on the phone calling and talking to people. And the agents who didn't last or just had family or did it part-time, they wouldn't return the calls. Same thing.
Right.
That's proof. That's hustle.
Biggest turnoff.
So number 2, follow up.
You can't let things lie. If you're going to try to obtain a goal or affect a solution, it's not done overnight. Sometimes it takes time, and you have to follow up. You have to stick with it. You have to show persistence, and there's no substitute for that. Success takes a lot of hard work. It isn't something that's given. It's something that's achieved.
Number 3, trial preparation.
Yeah. I'd say that if there was anything that distinguished me as a practitioner from all of the other attorneys that I dealt with, there were those attorneys that you knew were unprepared, and you knew the attorneys that were always prepared. I was always prepared. You read the depositions. I don't care if I didn't go to sleep. I made sure I read the depositions. I read the testimony. I reviewed the medical records. I looked at trial transcripts if it was a proceeding that had taken place earlier. There is no substitute. There's no possible way that you can serve your clients, no matter what profession you're in and no matter what you're doing, unless you're prepared. The one funny story I have about preparation is that there was a period of time when I was just jammed up. I had several hundred active cases in my practice at one time. And luck of the Irish, I just got a lot of cases set for trial. And all was happening at the same time. And so I wasn't able in a couple of instances to do the kind of thorough preparation and read everything that I would before the day of trial. In one case, I knew that I had simply not had the time to get around to doing what I ordinarily would have done. So I took a whole box of 3M Post-it tabs, and I went through all of the medical records, and there must have been 2,000 pages of trial notes, medical records, deposition testimony. And at random, I put hundreds of these Post-it tabs on these pages. So the day of trial, I walk in with this case, and I take a box filled with these 2,000 plus pages, and I drop it very loudly on the trial table. My opponent, my adversary, the other lawyer, is sitting right next to me, and he looks over and he sees this stack of documents, and every one of them is tabbed almost. So what's he thinking? Oh my God, this guy's prepared.
Good trick.
We never went to trial. He settled.
I can see that. That's like playing poker. Do you play poker?
Right.
Do you play poker here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound like a poker player.
Yeah.
The art of the deal.
Art of the deal.
The art of poker and oh yeah, I agree. If you look good,
completely psych the guy out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's so prepared,
So amazing. So never give up.
Never give up.
Didn't give up on that one.
Nope. You always push forward, and that meant when you lose a case and you don't think it was proper, you appeal.
So I'm going to ask specifically. Never give up, or a lot of people would have given up. What was one of the tough cases that you didn't give up, or in life, anything, and no one thought it would work, and it worked?
Wow.
And let me tell you, I watched your election when I first got here. That was a tough election. You ran against an incumbent Speaker of the Assembly. Yeah. And in retrospect, I think today you'd have a lot more votes after what just happened in Nevada. But that was a big challenge. You did a good race. You had a postcard.
Like Paul Revere, I was screaming from the rafters, trying to warn everybody what was coming. It's coming.
Fill in the listener here all over the world or other parts of California what happened.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. Not after your race, but just tell us on that case. What happened in Nevada here lately?
What, on the campaign?
Well, we just had an election and Republicans swept the state, and we just had the highest tax increases you could possibly have.
Well, it actually started before that. We had a proposition in November. We had the margins tax, which was a gross payroll tax, and the citizens of Nevada voted by an 80% margin to reject that. They said enough is enough. It was very disappointing for the school unions, of course, who had promoted that bill and brought it to the legislature. And, it's very cynical looking back on what happened because the governor came out against the margins tax. But it was because behind the scenes, they were already planning to hike the taxes. They were already working on a budget, knowing the margins tax was going to be rejected by the voters. And lo and behold, even after it was rejected by 80%, the governor proposed a $1.5 billion budget-busting bill that included a gross payroll tax. Basically it was, he was broadcasting loud and clear. I don't frankly give a damn, Scarlett, what you think or how you feel. So that was terribly disappointing, but Nevada is like a microcosm of exactly what's going on in Washington, D.C. And for Republicans, I think we've met the same kind of deep frustration, anger, and disappointment that you experience when promises are made, unequivocal promises are made, very clear promises that are repeated often. We're not going to raise your taxes. We're not going to extend the sunsets anymore on taxes. We're not going to give driver's licenses to illegal aliens. All these things were explicitly declared by Governor Sandoval in his 2010 campaign.
Right. Well, the point is you ran a good race. It was a tough race. I mean, it would have been tough to win in any case. And some of the things that these Republicans said, they actually didn't do. and that's what you're running against. So
Right.
in retrospect, you would have been the better candidate to at
Oh,
least bring
thanks.
forward those principles, Republican principles that we all stand for in the party. But they really do. The party generally has a good platform. That's why I try to stay nonpartisan, but we have a political show now. It's doing really well on Sunday mornings at 9:30 called Meet the Voter, meetthevoter.com. I need to get that webpage up. We've been testing it for five weeks, and we've gone up 400% in our numbers. That's huge.
Well, especially with the Washoe Central Committee, I've been basically venting my frustration by pointing out that the governor has not followed a single item on the Republican platform, not a single one.
Well, Richard, we've sidetracked a little bit. We got to finish up this period. I just realized that was fun. It's fun, but it's frustrating. I know a lot of Republicans have left the party. My wife is one, so I'm still there. But anyway, so never give up. You didn't give up on that one. Lead by example. Boy, that fits right into what you just said.
Right. Whether it's for your children, for your peers, or anybody else that you socialize with or work with, your character is largely determined by the way that you present yourself and are observed by other people. So when you act in a certain way, when you say certain things, people are going to be impressed by the fact that you follow through on what you say. And that is probably the most important character building thing that I can say is really important and has guided me through all this time.
Leading by example, that's well said. In the infantry call, follow me.
Follow me.
Follow me.
Exactly. I was an infantryman.
I was too for a couple of years. That's good. Did you go to Fort Benning for your training then?
I went to Fort Leonard Wood.
Oh, Fort Leonard Wood. Yeah. Lost in the Wood. Yeah. Leonard Wood.
They called it Little Korea.
So your word is your bond. Number 6, your word is your bond.
Right. If you say something,
which a lot of our Republican friends didn't do, did they? Yeah. Be
honest.
That's the problem with the Republican middle establishment right now.
Yeah.
They haven't, they failed. They totally failed there. And that's why you're seeing this in the national elections right now in the primary.
And in my law practice, it was critical. If I can't tell you how many settlements I reached with a handshake and how many cases were resolved with judges just based upon my representation to the judge. Judge, we're going to take care of this. It's going to be handled. We'll have the papers on your desk in a week.
That's because you built up trust.
If you can't be trusted, your history, because your reputation is everything.
It takes a long time to build a reputation, but you can destroy it in a day.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
And finally,
somebody should tell Hillary that.
That's a whole different story. And finally, fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, it was the video.
I know. I know. We'll talk about financial responsibility, and we'll talk about Hillary for a second.
Yeah. So financial responsibility, if you talk to my wife, Carol, and you ask her, why did you marry Rick? She'll tell you he had a great credit history.
That's
and being an employer, I believed that you're going to have a more reliable, trustworthy, and consistent employee if they take care of their own fiscal matters at home.
Right.
Again, it says a lot about your personal habits and your way of dealing with issues.
Well said. Well, that was your 7 success, life, and leadership principles. All really good. I want to go back. Let's think of something. You're just talking about Hillary Clinton, since you have the political show. We're deviating a little bit, and it's amazing. One thing I've noticed in politics. I've been involved in politics early on. I got out of the military, and about 4 years later, 5 years. Well, I was a vice president of the BIA and became a civil councilman really young. And I was involved in a lot of different races, helped a lot of people run for office. And I realized that the Republicans, after about 92, when they had that landslide election, in 94, they did well. But something changed in the middle up there. And I'll never forget John Kasich, who's running for president right now. And there was a safe Republican district I was working in. And they put up Kasich actually was going to do a fundraiser for the Democrat there because he was going to vote for his budget in a safe Republican seat because it was an incumbent there, and they were trying to take out. I was just absolutely amazed at the party doing that. After in this campaign, they were going to target it, and they pulled the targeting away, even though the candidate was excellent. Super good Republican candidate. You couldn't ask for a better one. And the other thing I saw was the same thing happened about 6 years later when Gary Condit was a congressman, got in trouble. They had a sitting senator one senator who voted with, this is a safe Republican district now, who had voted with the Democrats to pass Gray Davis's budget. And they put him up as the key guy. He also had 5 DUIs in his career. And if you checked his record, after 8 years, he got out of the Navy as an E1. And he'd been married, I said 5 times, and he had bankruptcies. Yet they put this guy up over another candidate. Amazing. And they lost, of course, the safe Republican seat.
There is no limit to the hypocrisy on the left. And if you are a progressive, communist, socialist, leftist, I don't think there are any Scoop Jackson Democrats left. If you toe the line, if you're a social justice warrior, you can do no wrong. And if you do wrong, it'll be overlooked. It'll be forgiven. It'll be permitted.
What is the party thinking, though, when they have great candidates with character flaws and they support those candidates with character flaws? What are they thinking?
Well, it's the same kind of mental illness and abandonment of principles, really. But
the Republican Party can't be mentally ill.
This isn't. People forget, but this isn't anything new. When Ronald Reagan started to make his move for higher office after he was governor in California, he had to battle the Gerald Ford Northeast, thoroughbred establishment of the GOP. The Bushes, the Fords, the Rockefellers, they said the same thing about Ronald Reagan that we're hearing said about conservatives in the party today. You're destroying the party. You're dividing. It's more important that we just elect Republicans. Just give us the Senate. Just give us the House. You need to vote for Republicans. So once we get in there and once we take over Congress, we can do all those things we promised we would do for you. Yeah. Well, thanks.
Well, Richard, we're finishing up part 2. We went a little long, so we're going to come back and we're going to find out what books you like, how to contact you, and one last question. But I've had a lot of fun because we're politically incorrect today, which is, I haven't done this in a long time. Not really good for business. But
I am not a politically correct.
Okay, just a reminder, we want to thank all the sponsors, specifically Share the Oils. And remember to go over to twohalfsuccess.com and pick up your $11 course and learn how to blab and podcast and YouTube. Well, Richard, we're going to give you a chance. We always give the guest a chance for a commercial. And you've chosen Conservative Talk Lunch. Did I say that right?
Conservative Talk Lunch,
very
yes.
Very conservative group in Northern Nevada. It's been around for a while. I actually went to it when I was still transitioning to Northern Nevada when I was doing military work years ago. I went to it a couple of times. Very impressed. A lot of folks. And it's run by your wife.
Run by my wife, Carol Finberg. And it takes place at the King Buffet on Kitski, right near the Atlantis, just off of Peckham. It meets the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of each month from 11:30 to 1. And it's a kind of a free-for-all where conservative ideas get expressed. And
very good. And it's very good, very active.
Very active. We have often over 100 people coming to these sessions. And
your wife's got a heck of a newsletter with the best information I've seen go out. I've used that information often.
Good. Yeah,
thank you.
A great group. So thank you.
Getting back to the show, what are your favorite books? What books do you like? Just real briefly, tell us what they are and what you like about them.
Animal Farm, Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and let's see what else. Animal Farm, Atlas Shrugged, and did I tell you a third one?
Well, tell us about Animal Farm. What's all that about?
Well, Animal Farm was, and 1984, that was the other one.
Oh, 84.
Yeah, George Orwell's 1984, and Orwell also wrote Animal Farm. Animal Farm was a parody on socialism. And it is all about a farmer and his animals. And the animals decide that they've had enough of exploitation by the farmer, and they're tired and sick and tired of being exploited and fattened up only to meet an ignominious death in the slaughterhouse. So led by a pig named Napoleon, they decide to stand up, and they actually revolt, and they kill the farmer. And the revolution succeeds, and Napoleon becomes in charge of the new animal revolution. And it doesn't take very long for the animals to realize that they've been kind of snookered, because all of a sudden they realize that they're being exploited, just like the farmer exploited them, and in many cases often worse. And when they decide to express their dissatisfaction to Napoleon, they reach out to him and they say, "Listen, Napoleon, you're just as bad as the farmer. We had this revolution so that we could stop being exploited." And Napoleon's response was well, in the new revolution, all pigs are created equal, but some pigs are more equal than others. Yes, I'm talking about you, Hillary. So that's Animal Farm. And of course, the companion book, 1984, is a blistering attack on the English Social Democratic Party. And, I started reading 1984 again just a couple of weeks ago, and I read the first chapter and I got depressed because we're there. We're beyond it. It is stunning. I recommend reading the book to everybody. It's just absolutely shocking, the kind of foresight that Orwell had in writing that book. It's simply amazing. And of course, Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged is a classic. And again, it illustrates the principles of individual freedom versus a collective society. I try to be, in everything I do, as much of an anti-collectivist as I can possibly be.
I actually really liked the book. I read it overseas, but tell me, how long did it take you to read it?
It took a couple of months. It's a very long book.
Yep. I remember that one portion, there's like 45 pages of her saying the same thing about over. It's like brainwashing over and over and over. It goes on, that diatribe towards the end, towards the end. That's unbelievable. She's an amazing writer. Interesting ideas coming from Russia. Well, next, we're going to find out, how can we contact you?
You can contact me by sending me an email at renodude50@yahoo.com, RENODUDE50@yahoo.com.
And we'll have that in the notes. Episode 138 at Timelines of Success is where you find us. But you can go anywhere. You can go to Podcaster's Home and it'll point to it. A lot of places you can find that address. Plus, you can look up all your bio and information at the new webpage that's coming up at meetthevoter.com. And that should be up by this weekend. And we're a little behind, but we're doing amazing with that show, with that growth of meetthevoter.com at 9:30 live on Sunday mornings after Meet the Press or Meet the Depressed, whatever. So going back to last question, there's some legislation. Who was it? I'm trying to think. Who is it? The anti-gun legislation is trying to push.
Well, it's part of the Michael Bloomberg billionaire from New York program to bring universal background checks to the state of Nevada. And the interesting thing is that the campaign is being spearheaded by Elaine Wynn of Wynn Resorts.
Whoa. Tough.
Prominent Democrat, appointed to the State Board of Education by our governor. Anyway, she's spearheading the campaign. And this is the most draconian infringement on our rights and an infringement on the Second Amendment that you can possibly imagine. It will make it illegal for you to loan a firearm to a relative. It'll make it illegal for you to go to the range with a buddy and hand your firearm to your friend who says, "Oh, can I take a couple of shots?" You'll have to both go to an FFL, pay a transfer fee in order for something as simple as that to occur. If you die, if you have any kind of gun collection, there's no provision for inheritance. You will not be able to sell or transfer those firearms. The government will come in and seize your firearms. And I might point out that with all this hullabaloo, there is not a single crime that has ever been solved through a background check. And in fact, many of the crimes with firearms that are notorious of late have been committed by people who have gone through a background check and passed.
Well, Richard, we'll have to have that brought up on the third section, the last section each week. We'll have to bring it up on a special section of Meet the Voter. That'd be really good. Hey, one last question. Who's going to win the Republican primary? What's your best guess? My best guess,
I know I'm going to be challenged on this, but my best guess is Ted Cruz. And I'll tell you why.
Is that who you want, or is that your best guess?
No, that's my best guess.
That's who you think is going to actually get it. If you had to bet, you're on it. Go down to downtown Reno and put a bet. Can you bet on the primary?
I don't know. I think it's going to be Ted Cruz, and I'll tell you why. People forget, as much as the conservative message is attacked, people forget that Ronald Reagan, who was unabashedly pro-life, had no hesitancy in calling the Soviet Union the evil empire, was able to walk away from the Reykjavik salt talks and tell Gorbachev to stick it where the sun don't shine. Reagan won in 2 landslides. The reason why McCain lost, the reason why Romney lost, is because people were presented with a choice of Democrat or Democrat light. I believe that when people are presented with a real clear choice, real conservatism, real fundamental champions of liberty, individual power, the Constitution, that's going to win every time. We still are a conservative country. And let me tell you why Ted Cruz is going to win. Although there are several people who I could live with. Ted Cruz is going to win because it's going to boil down to that kind of choice in the primaries. It's going to be someone squishy like Marco Rubio, who is going to be the golden boy now for the establishment since Jeb Bush is sinking like a rock. So the establishment is going to rally behind Rubio as Bush's money dries up. And in the primaries, it's going to be a battle between these two principles. It's going to be another McCain, Romney, Rubio versus a Ronald Reagan, Ted Cruz. And I think that given that choice, people are going to vote for Ted Cruz.
I'm going to ask the same question this Sunday at 9:30. That same question at the end from everybody. That's a really good one to ask. Interesting. I think when I think about it, it's very possible. The other thing, well, you know what? That was a great way to end. Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. So anyway, you can find all the notes at timelinesofsuccess.com or podcastershome.com. There'll be a little bit on the republicanmensclub.org here in Northern Nevada. We put up a little episode, a little part, because we want to show some of this technology that's out there to our Republican friends. And I really appreciate you being on. Look forward to Sunday.
My pleasure. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for tuning in to Timelines of Success. It's actually called the Timeline Show now. And I want to say one thing for that young entrepreneur and business person starting. Politics is really important that we have free markets and free speech, things of that nature. But when you're young, focus at making the money. Don't get too much into politics. Make your money. And later on with that money and your talent and maturity, you can do amazing things to protect our liberties. So don't start too soon. And it is tough. It is tough. When you get active in politics, you'll lose some of you'll probably lose some of those people who are your clients, because people will support you. They'll not like you because of some of your opinions. But anyway, that's just a couple of cents at the end. It's really, this show, I try to stay as neutral as possible, but sometimes we stray, and we strayed today, but it was an interesting show. And I would recommend everyone go on over to meetthevoter.com and see us Sunday morning at 9:30 for the show. Take care.